Welcome to the swamp. You ever wonder what Zoids mixed with Ark would look like? It's basically a survival game that looks like Horizon Zero Dawn. Imagine it, riding your own robot dinosaur and having Godzilla fights with other giant robots. It's an interesting concept, but how well does it play out? Let's find out. My name is Excalligator. I rate games based on many categories that would fit into most survival games, based on a 1 to 5 system. If a category does not apply, it will not affect the game's overall score. Now let us get started. So I played this game for a little over 20 hours in the first week of its early access. I have not been to the end, but I am fairly close. Due to how the game is, I feel like I've played enough to give a full review. So KARAGON came out into the early access a few weeks ago, as of this review coming out at least. The game is about you surviving in a post-apocalyptic world where nature has taken over but robots roam the land, and in order to survive, you need to harness their power and create your own robots. While the system requirements appear to be able to run off of a middle-of-the-road computer, it's better to have an above-average to a high-grade computer. There is also a note on there that everything is only in an evaluation and that it may vary. Yeah, because with my i5 processor, 3050 graphics card, and 48 gigabytes of RAM, the game would cause 2 issues for me. One, it drew so much power that anything else in the background was rendered to 0 FPS, and pretty much useless, so I couldn't watch YouTube in the background, and also OBS had a lot of issues, so you may see stuttering with my video footage, even though the game itself ran without issue. However, I did have one other issue, but I'll leave that for the bug section. Either way, this game is not well optimized, and that is a warning to even above average and some higher-end computers that are having issues running this game. There is no character creation. You start a new game, it flings you right into the forest, so this section is not going to be rated. Once you hit start, you are put into a small loading screen before you get a 60-second countdown to join the server. Of course, you can click start now. Once you are in the map, you will start off in the forest, which is the easiest biome in the game, of course. At first, you won't see any creatures, as they take a moment to start spawning. You can use this to your advantage and try to get a head start on gathering. Just like any other survival game, you punch trees and bushes for fiber and wood to make your first axe and pickaxe. By this time, robots have started to spawn around me. I walked up to a few of them to see if they were aggressive or not. Only 2 are not aggressive, and the rest are, as my first death was when I was walking up to a robot boar, and it demolished me. What's interesting is that no matter where you are when you die, you have the option to spawn near where you died, so the walk back to your body isn't really that bad. I thought I was in trouble gathering my things because the boar stuck around on top of my body like an arc, but I noticed shortly after it was gone. I then gathered up my stuff to make a freaking gun from wood. Wood! A wooden gun that shoots crystals for ammo. From there, I started killing smaller robots and began my grind to progression. There is a small tutorial and a hint system to help you to know what to do next, but the rest is up to you. I would say the start isn't too bad, but it's not the best overall, so I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. So there's a total of 4 biomes on the map. The forest, which is the easiest. Next would be the desert, then the tundra, and it ends with the volcanic area. Each biome has unique robots that you can find, as well as different tier of progressional items like iron, rust, and tech. Travel is much faster, of course, if you ride on a robot. There are also fast travel points that look like a rundown bus station. By locating these on the map, you clear out fog of war on your map, but you can use those points to travel faster. You can travel while riding robots, however, you cannot teleport everyone following you, so you will need to mount and dismount to teleport your robots one by one at a time. On that note, just like in Ark, your robots will get caught on every goddamned rock and twig in their path. Each biome contains fairly the same things: trees, rocks, progressional items like iron rocks or quartz, as well as buildings. Many buildings you can enter which will have powerful robots in them to destroy, and get a reward that will help you progress your power level, as well as unlock recipes. I'll talk about that again in the PvE section. Though, besides the few things I mentioned, I found traveling the biomes to be extremely boring. boring. The desert biome, everywhere you look, looks the same. Same with the forest, tundra. There was nothing really interesting, no landmarkers or anything, just trees or sand or snow trees, with the occasional building. I'm gonna give this section a 2 out of 5 for that reason. You only travel because you need the resources to grow. You don't really get the need or want to explore. The survival is all over this place in this game. First of all, the only survival aspect that you have is a food bar that is pretty much a non-issue. By punching the bushes for fiber, you get enough berries that you can just eat those and never go hungry. Even then, I kill maybe one animal every few in-game days and that will keep me fed. If I happen to forget to eat like I said, I have like 300 berries in my bag and it takes 20 to fill me back up. So the survival aspect is a non-issue. As for the enemies, well, I'll talk about this more in the PvE section. It's a weird thing because you become a glass cannon. When you have decent weapons, you could do a lot of damage and destroy dinos in a few hits, but they can also do the same back to you as well. The survival is going to be a 2 out of 5 due to the fact that the survival aspects are a non-issue, and even adding a bit of the PvE stuff to fill it in, it's up and down. While you can craft huge buildings and structures, it's really only needed to protect your base from other players. The robots don't really attack your base, they only attack you or your robots if they get close enough. On a single player realm, I only built foundations to place my workbenches, as making walls and such were not needed. There was also not a lot of decor. I do like the torches and lanterns that don't need any fuel, but that's about it. The building is also on a wheel menu that you could bring up and then scroll through it between the various options. I do like how it's categorized between tiers of buildings and workbenches though. As for the crafting, it's fine and serviceable. Each tier that you unlock, being stone, iron, rust, and tech, all need their own processing bench as well as a workbench, where you can craft your items for that tier. The method is the same every time, though I do like the pickaxes that cost half of the amount as other crafted tools to help you get a head start on the higher grade items as you progress more and more with your resources. The farming is also kind of useless. You can use the farming to grow your own crystals for various elemental ammo for your guns without the need to travel to gather them from their biomes. You can kind of make special food with it too, but as I said in the survival section, you could just eat a handful of berries and it'll be fine. I'm gonna rate this section a 2 out of 5, since the building and farming are kind of useless though harmless, and the crafting is basic yet serviceable.
Battle mode 0990. Ready? Fight!
The PvE is kind of odd and broken in places. Let's start with the positives. I do like how you can aim your gun and weak points will highlight for you to shoot off. When you damage and shoot them off, it does a crit damage to the robots. This is a main factor of the game, as you need these parts in order to build things, as well as scanning them to make your own robots. Once you scan a robot, you can gather the blueprint of that robot to build at some 3D printer that will randomly spawn in a similar fashion to the beacons and Ark. The different colors of the beacons are for different sizes of robots that can be built. Green for small, yellow for medium, red for large, and purple for enormous. Once you get to the beacon, you must defeat the enemies around the beacon that it has spawned first. After being defeated, the 3D printer becomes available to use and print your own robots with the blueprints and required materials. You can have your robots all follow you and attack like the dinos from Ark. It's just a teleporting issue when you're trying to teleport them all at once, and I only end up bringing 1 or 2 with me at a time to explore because of that reason. Sometimes really just sticking to one because they get stuck on every twig like I mentioned before, so you have to keep going back and helping the one that's following you every like 5 steps that you take. But this is the PvE section. I already said how I like to tame them. Is this a Godzilla robot masher like Zoids? Nah. First of all, every enemy has a small aggro range, so you can run into the highest leveled zone, being the volcanic zone, and you don't have to worry about being attacked unless you run into them by accident. And even when you do fight them, it's a mixed bag. I already talked about the good, now here's the bad. You're basically a glass cannon. You don't have any armor pretty much the entire time. While there is armor in the game, it's locked behind the buildings and the robots within them, which I'll talk about in a moment. But then I cleared out every single building in the forest and found only 1 piece of armor. So, while your weapons can deal a lot of damage, you can even solo larger robots if you're the right level, but if they hit you once or twice, you die. So how's the robot fighting if you can't fight them? Well, they can take more hits than you can for one, and their regen rate is pretty good, so there's very little downtime between fights. But with the large robots against large robots, the hitbox and pushback is so out of whack that enemies end up playing volleyball with each other, throwing them up into the air and being right up under them, tossing them right back up again, while my guy is taking all of the falling damage and hit damage and not being able to do anything else in return. I did have a couple of scares with that as well, thinking my robots were gonna die from falling damage until I was able to help them out and kill the enemy robot before, anything happened. The last thing I want to talk about in this section are the buildings. The buildings, you could say, are kind of like mini dungeons, with challenge robots to defeat. There are 3 or so types of buildings, one that will have a powerful robot in it, one with many levels, with each level having several robots to fight at the same time, and some of them, which are usually shorter buildings, with humanoid robots. By clearing the buildings out, you will be rewarded with various progressional items, from unlocking recipes to weapons and armor to talent points in order to grow more powerful, and even rewards plasma gun pieces to attach to your robot. The buildings are very buggy, as many of the floors have staircases that go right into the wall, making you having to jump over the rail in order to keep climbing. It does help to keep all of the robots from jumping at you at once. Even then, there are some staircases that are rotated in a way that progression up the floors is impossible and you cannot continue on. I'm gonna have to rate this section a 2.5 out of 5. While the weapon progression seemed fine and I did feel a power increase with my upgrades, which is why the score is bumped up a bit, the fact that you are a glass cannon and the robots having issues fighting each other brought it down by a lot. So after playing solo for a while, I tried to join a server to try the PvP out. Unfortunately, the servers are pretty much dead, and this footage, as you see, was recorded during an afternoon on a weekend, so I only saw a handful of people online, with only 2 people being on official servers. This footage was taken maybe only a few days after the launch. Since this game is already dead and empty, I'm gonna have to rate the PvP low as a 1 out of 5. You will not be able to find anyone to fight. I've barely found any other player buildings in the starting zone on the official servers. There is no story for the game to explore, nor was there any background given besides what we can visually see, so all of the story segments of my review will be skipped. There is not really an endgame, as all 4 biomes function the same way with the same progression, and once you reach the volcanic zone, that's pretty much it. Not only that, there is no content updates planned for the future. More on that in the active section. Either way, I'm gonna rate this a 2 out of 5. It would have been a 1, but I bumped it up a bit in case the people that do decide to try to sandbox it, build and tame all the robots. Even then, it's a bit of a stretch. There is no modding planned for this game, so this section will be skipped. So here's the issue. I've already showed you that this game is pretty much dead in terms of online players. Beyond that, the sole developer of this game has already come out and said that he doesn't plan to add any more content for the game, and that the only reason it's in early access is to bug fix it. Once he is done, he will fully release it, and that's that. So he can go on and continue his 2 other games that he is working on, which he is advertising in the main menu of this game. I'm sorry, but this is sus as shit. The game is not well optimized, which I'll discuss in the next section, as well as the bugs and the content. When it works, it is fine, but also it's lackluster for any more than a few hours of gameplay. As such, I'm going to rate this section a 1 out of 5. I had a lot of issues with this game that made it almost impossible to play, from it completely eating away at my CPU that no other game has ever done, to having robots playing volleyball with each other, buildings being inaccessible, a lot of placed items in the world are glitched and not placed correctly, and my most annoying issue. So, while the game itself was running in real time and was fine, the input of my keys lagged out badly. I would press a key and it would act as if it was sticking, so my character would keep walking even though I let go of the button 5 seconds ago. I would go to open a chest and it would bring up the options menu rather than just opening it. And while I don't know if this is a bug or not, but the robots seem to despawn and respawn rather quickly, and it's immersion breaking. I understand the want to cycle them out so you get a fresh batch of robots wandering around, but when they just straight up despawn and respawn right in front of you in a matter of minutes, that's kind of annoying. And as a nitpick, I'm gonna say that the sound effects are not only bland and half there, but the music, while it does sound nice, is always cutting off and changing to the next track. I've noticed taking damage can have it happen, but also at times, it just does it for no reason while walking through the forest, or even just staying still. I'm gonna give this section a 2 out of 5. It was super annoying to do anything with these issues. I did try to manage to push through it and continue playing even with the sticking key input, but that doesn't make it okay. My overall score for this game is going to be a 2 out of 5. While you can get some enjoyment out of it for the first few hours, granted if you don't have the bugs and lag that I did, the rest of the game is pretty hollow. Seeing as the dev himself said he doesn't plan on adding any more content, only bug fixing, this will be my final review of the game, as the 1.0 launch will most likely be the exact same as it is right now. If anything does change to the extreme in the future, I will be willing to reevaluate it, but it doesn't seem likely. And that is the end of this video. If you liked my review, please subscribe to this channel as I will be making more in-depth reviews of open-world sandbox survival RPG games, including those that no one ever talks about from the deepest, darkest depths of Steam. Some games that even look like the muck at the bottom of my pond. If you have any suggestions for what game to do next, please comment below and like this video. Florida Gator Man out.